this webinar is just going to be some basic information. If you're new to Agency MVP or just need a refresher, this is the webinar for you. We'll go over the call view pages, how to set up defaults, adding in leads, logging phone calls, and we'll talk about some workflows as well. So let me go ahead and pull up my Agency MVP account. So all the way up here at the top, you're going to see we have our home page, which is the page that you see right now, leads, prospects, and customers. Now, within each of these categories, there are some subcategories. So if we hover over leads, you're going to see we have all, hot, my NPI, API, and then we have missed appointments and the leads that you have pipelined. If you click on leads, you're going to see those same categories up here, and it's going to take you to your leads call view page. Now, every call view page is unique to each staff member because every household can only have one owner. And the only exception there is the API leads call view page. If your agency is purchasing internet leads, and the agency owner set it up so that they can manually distribute the internet leads, all of those internet leads are going into the API leads call view page. Everyone can see all the leads on this page. And from there, your agency owner is going to decide how those leads should be distributed. Now, we also have the option to have those API leads evenly distributed amongst the staff members, and that's going to be done within the workflow that the agency owner sets up. But if you see leads in your My API Leads call view page, that means that your agency owner is purchasing internet leads, but they're being directly assigned to you and possibly other staff members as they enter the MVP account. So again, these call view pages here, they are all unique. Each staff member they're unique to each staff member. Every household can only have one owner. Now, the customers section up here, it's a little bit different. Here you'll see auto, home, umbrella, life, specialty, and commercial. These are your cross-sell opportunity call view pages. You will only see a household on these pages if they're a customer, so you've sold a policy or you've marked a policy as sold at MVP and you had another policy that you did not mark as sold. So let's say you sold the home, but you didn't sell the auto, but you have the auto quote in there, you'll see them as an auto cross-sell opportunity. So you have to actually have the quote in MVP in order for it to show as a cross-sell opportunity on one of these pages. And then these are just all the customers that you have marked as sold or that maybe have been assigned to you that need a phone call today. So these are your call view pages. These are the pages that you are using throughout the day to go through and call. Again, we have our leads, prospects, and customers. And don't forget to check those subcategories in here. And your goal should be to work these numbers down to 0 as much as possible. So those are your call view pages or your list of households that you should be calling each day. Now, make sure that whenever you come in the morning, you'll notice that it starts you off on your reviewed quote prospects. This is your most valuable call view page because these are the households that you have already spoken to. You confirmed their information, you did the quote, you just have to close the deal. So highly recommend that you call through this page first every day. Of course, if you get a new API lead that comes in, call them and then just come back to this page. And then you can go to a waiting quote and work through your leads, etc. All right, now before we talk about how to manually add in a lead, you need to make sure that your account is set up with your default values. If you click your name at the top right, and go to default values. Here you can set up the coverages that you quote most often. Again, just what you quote most often. I know it's going to be different for every household, but for the most part, you can set that up here. So you can do this for auto. You can set up your defaults for home. Now notice here for home, you can do a dollar amount or a percentage. Life, umbrella, specialty, and commercial. Make sure you click update once you fill those defaults in so that it can save. And what this is going to do is it's going to save you time whenever you're entering your quote into agency MVP, because setting this up, it's going to pre-fill, and I'll show you that in a moment when you're entering in a new lead. You can also set up your next action default. So we do default the status to unanswered, because let's be honest, most phone calls are going to be unanswered. And then we also set up the next action to call tomorrow. So if you didn't speak to them today, you might want to call them tomorrow. You can change this here, but that's what we have it set up to. If you want to change those defaults, feel free to, and click update. All right. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer those for you. Next, let's talk about how to manually add in a lead. So I showed you where they're going to come in if you're purchasing internet leads that are integrated with an agency MVP. But what if you have a walk-in or a call-in? So to manually enter a lead, you're going to click the plus, and then you are going to add lead. You'll notice here there's an add customer as well. We're going to go to add lead. Now, the minimum information required to add a lead into agency MVP is a full name and an address. Now, I also like to recommend, let me just backtrack here for a second. Before you add in a new lead, before you click that add lead button, I highly recommend that you search the household first, just to make sure that they are not already in agency MVP. So you can search by address, you can search by phone number, you can search by name. I would recommend search by address or phone number, because names, you might have a lot of duplicates, so it may just be easier to search by something that's a little more specific. So I'm going to look here. Okay, so this address, it looks like I do have someone in here for that address. Let me try a different address here. Let's see. Let's try. Oh. All right, this one. Okay, so see, no records found. So now I know I'm going to avoid a duplicate. So I'll just go ahead and copy this. And then from here, you can also add a new lead. So question from Cindy, we're purchasing internet leads, but they're not populating in MVP. How do we fix this? I will go ahead and get back to that question in a minute, Cindy. You will have to, make sure that we are integrated with the lead provider. And then after that, you're just going to send that lead provider a piece of information. But I'll go ahead and show you guys that here in a bit. So again, that address was not in here. I'm going to go ahead and paste that, and I'll just finish with the address. So here we go. It populated right here. I see it's a Google verified address. And then we can go ahead and type in their name. We can go ahead and do the date of birth. Now, again, not all of these boxes are required. The minimum thing you're going to need is an address and a name. So if I click create lead, There we go. I like to create lead before I continue. I don't want to lose any information. Agency MVP does not auto save. So make sure you are saving as you work your way through. Now you'll see here that we also have a source. Now this is important to the algorithm because this is how you're telling MVP how you got that lead. So a call in is going to be more likely to close than a cold call, right? So this is an important piece of information that I highly recommend you go through. Just fill that in very quickly. The next thing you want to make sure you have filled in is that marketing source. This is going to identify the specific campaign that brought the lead into your office. This is how the agents are tracking their return on investment. So this should be a must for everyone. Make sure you have that marketing source. To create a new marketing source, you can just start typing. I'm going to say this was a referral from Ashley, and then click enter. Now I've created a new source. You can be as specific or as generic as you'd like. You could just say referral, or if you want to track referrals from a specific person, you can do that as well. So you could go ahead and finish filling in the information here. Now, if you have consent to text this household, make sure you check that box. And then again, I'm just going to click save because I have this basic information in here. Now you'll notice that the residence has already been filled in under my residence box. You do have to have the residence in here in order to do the home quote. We're also going to add in any vehicles. So any vehicles that you're going to be quoting, let's put that in there. And I will save that. Again, all the vehicles, you can add them there. Now, if you are a farmer's agent, we do have a Chrome extension that we have built. We have some information on how to download that on our help desk. But this is the point where you're going to want to copy the data. So click copy. You'll see it copied address, contact information, vehicles, copy data. Then you're going to go to Apex, start a new lead. At the left-hand side where it says lead, you're going to add a lead and then paste this data there, paste this information. You'll do your quote like normal. And then whenever you're done with that quote, you'll come back to Agency MVP and you're ready to enter that quote information in here. Now, if you are an independent agent and you are using, let's say, Easy Links or Turbo Reader, this is where you're going to click Add Quote. And you should see down here, right above where it says Quoted Carrier, you should see like a Send to Easy Links button or a Send to Turbo Reader button. If you're a AAA agent, send to AAA. So once you have entered your data into, your credentials into MVP, like for Easy Links, Turbo Reader, etc., you'll see those buttons appear right here, and then you'll be able to send the information, do your quote, and then come back into MVP. Apologies, I'm a little under the weather. I feel my voice getting stuffy. Okay. So I clicked add quote for your quote. So this is the quote that I am going to present to this prospect. As you can see, I have all of this that has pre-filled for me. That's because I did it in my default. So make sure you do those defaults so that you don't have to fill in every box every single time. And then, of course, if you need to change something, at that point, you can change it. So I'll just quickly fill in a few pieces of information here. This is the quote that came back. I'll just leave my coverages, and then I'm going to save the lead. Now I did a home quote as well. I'm going to click add quote. And then here again, select your carrier. Yes, you can add foremost signature as a quoted carrier, Stephen. If you don't see it down here, just send a message over to our support team. We just have to add it to this drop down for you on our end. Again, I'm going to do the effective date, the premium, and then I'll go ahead and enter my dwelling amount. Now, when I click the tab to move to the next box, you'll see again, this all filled in with my defaults. Now, another thing that's important for you to add are any claims. So here at the bottom, don't forget to add any claim dates. That's going to be anything that's affecting underwriting, an accident, a ticket. Go ahead and add that information in. Again, this is just something that's going to be helpful. I like to tell, the agents and producers, the more data that you put in here, the more you're going to get out of it. You have to put claims in? No, but if you do, you're now going to have another set of options when you're calling back. It's going to help the ranking to decide when you should call them or how valuable they are. So if you have that information, why not put it in? Same goes for current carrier. So if you have their current carrier information, even if it's just the carrier. So if it's just the carrier, fill that in. If you have additional information, then great. So I'll go ahead and fill this in here. And then I will go ahead and click Save Lead. I'm going to put in the current carrier information for auto as well, so you can take a look at what that's going to look like on the quote comparison. And then let's just say, if you have their coverages or if those coverages came in with that lead, then you'll see that in here. So now that I have my quote ready, I'm ready to send them the quote comparison. So you'll see quote comparison here or here at the top right. Once I pull it up, I have a message here. This is customizable. And then I can see my auto quote, how much I'm saving them, how much additional coverage I'm offering. And we have the side-by-side view here. Okay, so the side-by-side view. And then if I keep scrolling down, we have the home quote, annual savings. Now, let's say you don't have that current carrier information. That's fine. You can still send the quote comparison. It's just going to be with your quote. So this is what it would look like if you're just sending the quote comparison with your quote. It's just going to give them that one line. Now you can send the quote comparison via text or email. When you send the quote comparison, we will timestamp it as well. So you'll be able to see when the last time when you sent it, and you'll also be able to see when they actually opened it and looked at it. All right. Any questions? That was just a quick overview on how to add in a lead. We talked about the quote comparison. Again, you can send it via text or via email. So next thing, let's talk about how to log phone calls. Now, you can log phone calls in one of two places. You can log the phone call directly from this page, the details page. This is kind of the less preferred way to log a phone call if you're just kind of going through and calling through your call view pages, but you can definitely log it here. Make sure if you're logging a phone call from this page that you click the save button right here. Clicking save lead does not save the phone call. Save and then save lead. Now, if you're just calling through your call view pages, let me save lead before I exit. you're going to actually want to call from the call view page. So if I'm calling through leads, I see that Michael is at the top. That's the one I just entered in here. I'm going to click the arrow to the left, log my phone call, save it, close it. Next one, log my phone call, save it, close it. Again, we talked about how a lot of these are probably going to be unanswered, and that's why we recommend calling directly from this page. And then if you get a hold of them at that point, go to the details page. Brent, I'm going to go over that here next, okay? So let's look at the different options to log a phone call. I'm going to log the phone call for Michael over here. We have the different statuses, which are answered, unanswered, inbound, or no call attempt made. No call attempt made, this would be mostly used maybe if you just want to track that you sent an email. So let's say Michael answered. The date and time defaults to the moment that the time that I clicked the little caret over here to the left of the name. And then we have the next action. So it says call tomorrow, right? That was my default, but I spoke to him and we discussed, something else. So I probably don't want to call him tomorrow. We also have call today. This would primarily be used for API leads that you want to call a few times that first day that you get them in. We also have callback future date. Maybe Michael told me he was on vacation and he said, Ashley, can you call me back next Wednesday? I'm going to go ahead and click the 18th. When I save this, oops, I forgot to add my note. We'll just say on vacation. When I save this, notice this box that filled in up here. It pipelined Michael till the 18th. So that means Michael is going away from my call view page. I'm not going to see him as someone I need to call until the 18th. On the 18th, Michael will return to this same page. And that's how I know I need to call him that day. Now, we also have the callback renewal date. Since I put their current carrier renewal date, I see this option here. So this is telling me to call him back June 17th. This is actually going to be 30 days before their actual renewal date. So MVP wants you to call them 30 days ahead of time. Now, the last option that you'll see is callback specific date and time. If you choose this option, you are removing the household from the rankings. You are telling MVP, I need to call this household on this specific date at this specific time. So if Michael told me, hey, Ashley, I'm busy at work right now. Call me back at my lunch. It's at 2:00. Okay, so I'm going to call him back today at 2:00. Let's put my little note in. So again, this is going to remove Michael from my ranked leads, and it is going to set him as a priority lead. So now I see him here. He is not being ranked anymore. I see that I have a call with Michael in 36 minutes. And then whenever it's time for my call, I'll just put my notes and then choose either answered, unanswered, or if I'm canceling this, and that will put him back into the rankings. Okay, any questions about logging phone calls? All right, so next we're going to move on to workflows. Now, Brent, you asked how to assign a workflow to a lead. So since we're on this page, I'll just show you right here. You can assign it from the call view page in this workflow dropdown. You can also assign it from the details page, again, from this dropdown. Now, when you assign a workflow to a household, you are able to see the actions of that workflow that are going to take place on this workflow tab. If you need to manually halt the workflow, You can do that if you need to resume it, if you want to skip an action, edit an action. Here are going to be all the actions that are sent out to this household on this workflow. Now, let's kind of backtrack then. So that's how you assign workflows, but let's talk about what a workflow is. So if you click your name at the top right and go to workflows, here you'll see that we have 3 types of workflows. We have an API workflow, a custom workflow, and an X-State workflow. Now, your agent has most likely already learned all about workflows and most likely created the workflows for your agency. So we won't spend too much time on creating a workflow since, again, that was most likely already done by your agent. But I do want you to understand how these work differently. So API workflows, these are only for the integrated internet leads into your MVP account. You cannot manually assign an API workflow. You cannot assign it to anyone. It gets automatically assigned as the lead enters MVP. Now, custom workflow, these can be assigned to any household you want. And then X-State workflows, these are based off of renewal dates. Now, you can base the X-State workflow either off of the current carrier renewal date, or you can base it off of your renewal date for the policy you have sold. So when you create the X-State workflow, you can choose that. I want to say it defaults to the competitor quote. Now, one instance that you may want to use the X-State workflow for your quote is if you're an independent agent and let's say you sold an auto policy, maybe you want to check back with that household before that renewal to see if you could re-quote them and save them some money. So that's kind of the idea behind the X-State workflow for your sold policy. Otherwise, most of the time you're going to be using the X-State based on the current carrier quote. These workflows can go out up to 45 days before and up to 45 days after a renewal date, and they'll go on for up to 2 years. So the workflow will just continue for up to 2 years worth of renewal dates. Now, we do have workflow templates that you can take a look at. Over here to the right, you'll see workflow templates. We have a few custom, a few X-State ones. If you're a producer, you're on this call, or even an agent, I love to recommend this lead re-engagement workflow. This is going to be kind of like your quotes not close workflow. So for households that you've quoted in the past, maybe you have just a ton on your call view page and you're just, maybe you can't get to all of them today. Well, start texting them, assign this workflow to them. It says something like, I quoted you in the past. It's been a few months since I last quoted you. I've seen agents receive success from mass assigning this workflow to just old prospects that they've quoted. You can also use these X-State workflows. So I highly recommend the auto X-State contacted or the home X-State contacted. So this would be if maybe you spoke to the household and they said, you know what, I'm going to stay where I'm at, or no, I'm not interested. Okay, that's fine. We're going to pipeline them out to their renewal date. And I'm also going to add an X-State workflow so that I can start texting them. They'll receive texts and emails from me 45 days before their renewal. And then I'm going to start calling them. So those are great ones for, your quotes not closed, essentially. So you're going to pipeline them and you're going to assign an X-State workflow. There are 2 separate actions. Pipelining does not assign an X-State workflow. Assigning an X-State workflow does not pipeline. 2 separate actions in MVP. Now, I mentioned mass assigning workflows. Once you have, let's say you create that lead re-engagement workflow and you want to assign it to everyone on your call view page or just multiple people, you'll see right here on your call view page under the filters where you can update multiple households. You can either select all the households on this page, or you can just select a few. Then you can update the workflow, decide which workflow you want to assign, and then choose that workflow. So lead re-engagement. And then when you click apply, that workflow is going to start immediately. And again, it's only 25 at a time. If you have 5 pages, you may not want to do all 5 pages right now. Maybe start with 1 page, see what kind of response you get. And then maybe in 2 days, you can assign it to another page and so forth. So that is how you mass assign workflows. We also talked about how to, okay, I'm just making sure I don't assign that to anyone, how to assign it directly from the call view page or from the details page. Now, an important thing to remember about workflows, if someone replies via text message, or if you log a phone call as answered or inbound, the workflow does halt itself. Again, if you log a call as answered or inbound, or if they reply, whether their reply says, send me a quote or not interested, any reply will halt a workflow. If they reply by email to an email action in your workflow, we do not have access to your email. We don't know they've responded to your email. So at that point, you would have to come in and manually halt the workflow. So how I showed you guys earlier, where you can go to this little workflow tab, this is where you can resume a workflow, or you can also halt a workflow. Okay, so those are just some of the basics that I've wanted to go over with you guys today. Let me show you our resource center as well. And then let me show you Cindy. I know Michael put in the chat where you can read the article on the leads coming into agency MVP. So if you click your name at the top right and go to account information, if you're purchasing leads from EverQuote, this is the URL that you're going to use. And if you just look at that article in the chat as well, it'll walk you through it. And then if you're purchasing from any other lead provider that we're integrated with, such as Quote Wizard, Smart Financial, All Web Leads, Hometown, etc., there's a long list, you're going to use the organization token. So to get to our help and support page where you can find more articles and more videos, you can click your name at the top right and go to help and support. And we're going to open up for a Q&A here in just a moment. And then on this page, you'll find helpful guides and you'll find MVP University. This is where you can find training videos. You can also, my favorite thing to do is, like, let's say you've already gone through the trainings, but you just have a quick question. You could just type it. So let's just say in Cindy's case, I'm going to say, okay, I'm buying EverQuote leads. How do I get those to come into MVP? I searched a keyword. And then here, this is how you set up your EverQuote leads. And this is how you set it up for all the other lead providers. And here's everyone that we're integrated with. And if you don't see the lead provider you're integrated with, you can follow these steps. All right, so any questions? That is all I have for you guys today. Any questions for me or for any one of our panelists? Happy to answer those for you guys. I'm also going to put up, if you have not already joined our private Facebook group, the name of that group is Agency MVP-members only. So please request to join. You can connect with other agents all around the United States. Don't forget, we also have a live chat. So the best way to reach us is through that live chat. If you have any questions, type them in that chat. We'll be happy to answer them for you. I'll hang around for another few minutes. If you think of any last questions, happy to answer. If not, thank you guys so much for joining me, and stay tuned for our next MVP Live next month. Great question. So Hannah, will there be a recording of this sent out, or do you have to be in it at the time? We will most likely put the recording of this on our MVP University. We do have a section here. Let's see where it is. Where live webinars? MVP Live recorded webinars in MVP University. So you can catch the recording of this webinar on MVP Live. Thank you. So you will actually have to download the Chrome extension, Cindy. So if you come over here to this page, just type in Chrome extension. Right here, it says copy to clipboard Chrome extension. Here's a video on how to use it, as well as the direct link to that Chrome extension. All right, so another question says, can you please show us a lead that has undergone some workflows to see how we can review what has been done and if any action has occurred since they responded to a text? Okay. Let's see here. So let me look at this example. So again, if you click on the workflow tab here, this is where you'll be able to see, let me go to a different page. Let's see if I can find another one. You're able to see the action. This is my test account. So I most likely do not have a lead in here that has undergone some. Okay, let's see this one here. Workflow. Okay, here we go. So this is showing me that the email is scheduled to go out on the 13th. That is tomorrow at 1:25 p.m. If it already occurred, you would see something like done. Okay. Now to answer your question, it might be a combination of a few things. So this is where you can view the workflow actions that have occurred. But if you want to see like text responses or contact history, that's going to be under the calls tab. So here you can see text messages, phone calls that were logged. If you want to view the specific messages sent, you can click the send message button, and then you're able to see here the thread, the text thread for that account. Hopefully that answered your question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, if you guys think of something later, feel free to chat it in. Again, if not, thanks for joining, and I will catch you guys on the next MVP Live for February. Thank you.